guys, today I'm doing my thriller of the month. If any of you can't guess, my thriller of the month is The Chain by Adrian McKenzie. So The Chain is a story about a woman who finds out that her child has been kidnapped. She then finds out that the only way she can save her child is by kidnapping somebody else's child. Then, when her victim's parents kidnap a third child, her child will be released. She is now part of The Chain. I read The Chain at the start of this month, and wow, oh wow, was that a good book. I gave it a 4-star rating because I was absolutely amazed by the story. First of all, I want to say how unique this story was. I have a physical copy, but I've given it to my father to read because he was so excited to read it as well. So you have this lovely insert. So The Chain is a story about a woman who finds out that her daughter's been kidnapped. She's then given instructions on how she will get her daughter back, and she has to carry out some of the worst crimes she could possibly imagine, including kidnapping a young child. But it's not as easy as kidnapping a child. She has to be able to kidnap a child whose parents won't go to the police, who can afford to pay the ransom demand, and who won't ask too many questions. And she is forced to research all of these families and all of these potential children that she could kidnap and take from their home. She also has to be careful because they've told her if anyone goes to the police, if the ransom demands are not met, if she does not follow the instructions perfectly, and anyone further down the chain does not follow the instructions as they are supposed to, then her daughter will be killed. So she is constantly scared of everything in case it messes something up. We're immediately thrown into the story where young Kylie is kidnapped, and that is an emotional roller coaster as it is, because you get to see the villain's perspective. Like her kidnappers, her parents, you get to see how it's not a choice they wanted to make. It's not something they wanted to be a part of, but their love for their child will make them do unspeakable things, even murder. And it's so harrowing because in this story, there was no easy villain. There was no one to hate. And it was so difficult because everything you hated Kylie's kidnappers for, you couldn't hate them because our main character Rachel did exactly the same things later on. And it was so difficult to find someone to hate. You understood all of these characters. You got such a high level of empathy, which was something so new for a thriller. And it's something that you don't come up against too often. And I loved it. I just loved how unique this story was. There is so often a basic thriller storyline, and when people pick it up they'll say, oh, I've read about 9 thrillers that are all exactly the same. Not this one. This one was such a unique storyline and it was such a unique concept that no matter what you did with it, it worked. It was interesting, I was on board for it, and I just couldn't wait to figure out what was happening. Throughout all of this story, Rachel is forced to keep Kylie's kidnapping a secret from Kylie's father because Rachel doesn't believe that he will act in accordance to the rules. She thinks he will go to the police and that he is not to be trusted. So she enlists the help of her ex-husband's brother, who is then brought on board to help rescue Kylie. Now, this story was completely harrowing. I won't ruin anything, but there were some moments in there where I just could not have foreseen it happening. I was shaken, I was shocked, and you really got to see not so much the character development of that, but you got to see the true desperation of the characters. You got to see the levels they would go to protect their children, and it was terrifying but beautiful to see. Our main character, Rachel, starts off as a woman who is recovering from cancer. She gets some really bad news. She's going through such a hard time. And then in a matter of minutes, her world is destroyed. She is forced to plan a kidnapping of a child. She is forced to get herself into so much debt to pay this ransom because she wants her daughter back. She is forced to do so many horrible things and unspeakable things, even to the point where I was sat there and I thought, she can't do this, surely. She would not do that. Like, our character couldn't do that. And there were times where it was to the wire, and sometimes where she even did these unspeakable things that I thought weren't going to happen. And then it felt as though when the story concluded, there was more of a story following it. And I was like, whoa, I didn't expect the story to do this. This is how I expected it to go. I didn't expect this. It was pretty much perfect from start to finish. I couldn't complain about anything story-wise all the way throughout. My only reservation, which was why it got a 4 star instead of a 5, was that I would have loved had it been a darker ending. I feel as though the ending was suitably dark. It was to a level of darkness that I really enjoyed it. I understood why it went there. I understood everything, and I thought it was excellent, and it was a fantastic ending. But I'm someone who's kind of used to reading a lot of thrillers. I do it frequently. And seeing something like this that was such a unique concept, I thought this book could really just go the extra mile, make it such a dark and evil, twisted ending, and it would be perfection. And it didn't do that. And I wasn't so much disappointed they didn't do that. I was just like, oh, never mind, but I would have liked it. And maybe that's not a justification for me to give it a lower rating because it didn't end the way I wanted it to. But when I kind of hoped it did that, it kind of took a little bit of enjoyment away. But overall, this story was amazing. And just after I read the story, I got to listen to the author in an interview. And it was so interesting listening to him discuss how he came up with the story. And he likened it to when you was in school and you had chainmail. And it starts off with, do this and send this on to so many people or your family will die or something like that. And people always did it. They always said, I don't believe in this, but I'm going to do it anyway, just in case. And he likened it to that and an adult version. And he also discussed elements of what he used to do as a job. And you got to see all of these parts of his life in that story. And I found it so interesting. You got to see how the chain works, how big of a thing it is, because it is not as simple as there is a small group of people. This spans everywhere, and it is so interesting to see how it works and how well thought out it really, really was. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the uniqueness of the story. I love how the story played out. I really couldn't fault it. It was a fantastic story. If there was anything, as I said, I would have liked more of a darker ending, but the book as it was suitably dark. It was fantastic and I loved it and I can't complain. So if you have not checked out The Chain already, I would 100% recommend you did so. It is out. I will leave the link down below if you fancy going buying it. And if you have read it, let me know what you think. If you think The Chain is something that you do want to read, let me know what you think. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and this is my thriller of the month. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you leave a comment down below because I really want to know what you think of this month's thriller of the month. Bye.